It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Tuesday, December 26th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have a Provi In The Media, the Sunday message and Christmas word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is a Tuesday already. It is Boxing Day over here in the Commonwealth. For those of you guys not in the Commonwealth, which means you weren't, conquered by England, you guys are going to probably just have a regular 26th, but it is Boxing Day over here in Malaysia. It is a Commonwealth country. Canada is a Commonwealth country too, but I hope you guys really enjoyed your weekend, enjoyed your Christmas Day. Don't forget, we have Q&A Thursday this week. Well, every week we have it, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. If you haven't yet, go ahead, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. Now, Sunday message title, and we have the Christmas title. The Sunday message title is A Christmas of Love and Peace, and then the second title is Thank You. And, of course, the Christmas message is The One Awaited Comes From Among Those That Are Waiting, and the King of Love and Peace. Right, so we will be going over two messages today because yesterday was Christmas Day. We kind of left it a little bit more chill. For those of you guys who haven't seen it yet, I did post up a highlight video of all the things that we saw, all the things that I did on Christmas Day, all the performances and such. It was really, really inspiring, graceful, and I was really happy to be spending my Christmas not in the worldly way by going shopping and doing those different things, but the worldly love, but spending that time in church with members and giving glory to the Holy Trinity as much as I could. So big question to you guys right now is, how was your Christmas? What did you guys do for Christmas? How was your events for Christmas? What'd you guys do for performances? Did you perform anything, or was there something else? Were you watching a performance or something along that line? Because I watched two different churches. The events were just amazing. Like I told you yesterday, one was a small church, so a little bit more homey and intimate. And the second church was really, really big, so it was like a giant production. I really like that too. So let me know in the comments what you guys did for Christmas. Now, it's actually Boxing Day today. Boxing Day for countries in the Commonwealth. And for those of you not in the Commonwealth, what is Boxing Day? Okay, so Boxing Day is a day that you can actually raise your complaints about the presents you received, right? So it's pretty crazy, right? So why is it called Boxing Day? Let me tell you why it's called Boxing Day, okay? So Boxing Day is a day you can really complain about your presents openly. So how does it work? There's three stages. The first stage is the first complaint. So you're able to air out your grievance to the person who gave you the present, and the person is able to explain to you why. Right? They can explain to you, oh, this is why I got you that present, okay? Now, if you are unsatisfied with the explanation from the person who gave the present, you can move to step two. Step two is when you go to an arbiter, okay? So, it's like when you go to arbitration. There's someone who does not know any side. They have no biases. They don't know anyone on either side, and they can listen to the complaint and to the reasoning. Now, if the arbiter deems that the present is egregiously bad, you can move to step three. What's step three? Step three is choosing a venue of choice for a boxing match, and all details must be talked about beforehand, meaning how many rounds, how long is each round, what the winner should eventually get, is there a knockdown rule, and stuff like that too. Right, so yeah, it eventually gets to a boxing match, which rarely happens. Why? Because nowadays, no one's going to be boxing over a present. Okay, so that's the total lie. That's just a stupid joke, right? I say this every year, so you guys must know this joke by now, right? But let me tell you the real reason. And guys, I'm not going to lie to you this time. This is going to be real. I'm not going to be saying something like we're going to murder each other in boxes or something along that line, right? In the past, in England, this is, remember, in the UK, people would give their presents, but to give their presents, they put them in boxes. Okay, so what they do is they borrow boxes from department stores, and then after opening the presents on Christmas Day, the next day, which is the 26th, is Boxing Day, and it's a day that people can go back to the department stores to give the boxes back to the department store because they're only borrowed, right? So that's the actual meaning of Boxing Day. I know. If you think about it, this sounds just as ridiculous too, but it's real. This one is the real one. Boxing Day is when you return your boxes back to the department stores that you borrowed to give presents to people like that. And that is the truth, right? So you guys can Google it. You can Wikipedia it. The first one's actually the first one sounds cooler, that if you can box someone for giving you a bad present. I think that one sounds a lot better. And we can make it a tradition in Providence if we want, but on Christmas, we're usually only giving presents to Jesus, right? Which means the only person that can box you is Jesus, which means you're all going to lose, right? So right now, where am I? Currently, I'm in the countryside. Well, is it the countryside? Felix, is this a countryside? Yes, we're in the countryside called Mantin, all right? And here is a campsite, and I've posted on my Instagram already. It's just like tent city that's made, and it's really, really cool here because there's a couple members here that have they're building this camping culture. Right? Hey, Felix, come here for a second.
Hi.
All right, so, I'm in the campsite. There's people all around here, too. So here's Felix. He's one of the people in charge of the campsite. And what is the purpose or the reason why you're starting this camping culture?
I think we just wanted to build a platform for members could gather and, speak. They could just share whatever they want in this camp. Yeah. I think that's it.
All right, so it's and I think one of the cool things about going camping is it is kind of a place where you're openly able to, you're out in nature, you're in a retreat away from your regular place, and because of that, people are a lot more open. So how many times have you done this camping trip?
For me,
10
times.
So it's 10 times for him, and how many times have you taken people on it?
4 to 5 times.
4 to 5 times already. So it is you could tell it's turning into a culture here because we went to service at 10 a.m. for Christmas. It's still Christmas Day for me over here. And we went to service at 10. We got lunch. And by the time we got here by 3:30, all the tents are set. Like they set up everything, which means it's kind of like glamping because there's zero work to be done, right? And right now there's a lot of these SS girls gathering around and they're staring at me. And I'm staring back at them. I don't know if they understand me, though. Can you guys understand my English? Okay, they understand my English. They understand my English. Yeah, but I am literally at a campsite. If you check my Instagram, you're going to see like a picture of it. Simpson, come over here. All right. Simpson's a guy I just met yesterday. Simpson, say hi.
Hi.
How old are you?
10.
10? Where are you from?
Malaysia.
Okay, cool. And he speaks English. Where did you learn your English?
I was born with it.
You were born with English. That is so crazy. I wasn't even born with English. Yeah, but that's Simpson. How old are you again? 10, right?
Yeah.
He's 10 years old. We got a lot of SS that came here too, so I'm pretty happy. So we're in a campsite in Malaysia. It's super hot at the moment. It's like 29 degrees and humid, which makes it around 32, 33 degrees. And I think tonight it's going to drop to around 24 degrees. And I'm not sure if I need a blanket tonight or anything else like this too. So that is something that I am looking forward to this too, right? So 24 tonight, possibly rain, could be quite interesting. But it's very different out here for me to just be in the wilderness. It's not even the wilderness. It's a campsite. But the campsite is surrounded by wilderness, and there's a petting zoo down here too. But it's a campsite. It has some facilities. There's a bathroom and showers, which is not like luxurious. It's just like a bathroom and a shower, it's nice, of course, to have it, but I think there's some places like this in America that do have the sites that have a bathroom and shower too, right? So it's not luxury or anything like this. We're still in tents, but I'm definitely able to record my podcast. They have like an extra, like not a generator, but an extra battery that lasts for like 3 days, so it's kind of cool to have this here too. Oh, there's something really cool. So remember I told you guys when I went to the airport church over there in Taiwan? I think the name of the church was Tao Yuan Church. It's in Tao Yuan, and I call it the airport church just because it's in the same city as the airport. And the name of the church was Chu Himang Bit, which means the Lord's Light of Hope Church. Okay. And I went there and told you guys that, when I was there in Sunday service, I didn't see a choir. There might have been 2 people there. But someone from the Taoyuan church, the airport church, and they even said to me in the comments, like, here is the airport church choir recording for the Sunday service. So they're trying to tell me that, hey, we do have a choir. So I am going to play for you the choir song that was recorded to show you that, yes, the Taoyuan church does have a choir. So there it is, guys. That is the Lord's Light of Hope Church. That is a Taoyuan church over there in the airport city. And that's a church that I did say that I didn't see a choir when I was there for Sunday service. I mean, there might have been 2 people there, but I guess it was just one of those rare occasions that the choir wasn't there. I'm sure it was, right? So thank you so much for sending me that audio. I really appreciate it, and everyone can listen to this wonderful choir do and this recording that you guys gave. All right, and it sounds very beautiful, guys. It really does. Okay, so just for some of you guys out there, we already know that the results of the trial did come out, and I didn't want to bring it up yesterday mainly because it's Christmas Day. We really want to focus on giving glory to the Holy Trinity. It is Christmas Day still for me, but those guys listening right now, it is going to be Boxing Day. It's the 26th, okay? Now, we know that the results did come out, and it came to 23 years, all right? And there's just a couple things that I did want to kind of bring up. Okay, and a couple things that were just really deep, because on that day, also there was, those story letters that Sunseam sends from the Holy Spirit and such, and it was the 60th letter, and that was on the day of the sentencing, and basically it was Jesus's voice. It wasn't the Holy Spirit; it was Jesus's voice. And one of the things that was just so deep from it, and we can hear it coming out of the Sunday messages and the Christmas messages and stuff like this too, and you kind of see it starting from that story story letter number 60, which says it was Jesus' voice saying, "Without sacrifice, salvation is not possible." Okay, without sacrifice, salvation is not possible. And then it said, "Outside this path, there is no path of life." Okay, and this kind of makes us think even more deeply, especially when the messages came out. It says salvation is not possible without sacrifice, and that's a true statement, but we also know that it has to come in different levels. Now, what does it mean that it has to come out in different levels? Which means that it really depends on the level of the time period. So how wicked they are, how great they are, how righteous they are. Because if you think about it, imagine if at the time of Jesus, all the religious people, they did everything right. Like they really, really loved God, and they really, checked with God. Like Sunseam said in the Sunday message, imagine if the Magi actually checked with God and said, "Hey God, is this really real? Is this really true or not?" Right? And if they really checked it and they said, "Oh my goodness, this is the one that God has sent." Because one of the things I did talked about yesterday, and it's coming from the message too, is like the religious leaders kind of baffle me in some sense, because how can they just stand by and let Herod kill all the children 2 years and younger in Bethlehem when the Messiah is supposed to be born there? So basically, they're not even protecting the Messiah. They know that the King Herod is going in there. He knows that, that the Magi came and they told them that the king was being born. And they said, yes, it'll be born in Bethlehem. The Star of Bethlehem was there. So if Herod goes in to kill the kids, right, kill all the babies, doesn't it just make sense for the religious leaders to say, whoa, you can't kill the Messiah? You know what I mean? Like, they should have stepped in. And that's the thing that it made me think a little bit more deeper, is they knew what was going on, and yet they couldn't stop Herod from killing the Messiah or the path of salvation. And that's something that I looked at. I was like, that is so weird that they kind of just let them do it without any fuss, or without saying that, hey, you can't do this. Like, it's kind of what Sunseam said in the message is, hey, they should have said, whoa, Herod, let us take care of it. Or they should have explained it well, like, no, this is not a king that's taken over your position, Herod. This is a spiritual king that you can work together with. He's not going to be the physical ruler. He's going to be a spiritual ruler. Like, every time I listed, I was like, yeah, it doesn't really make any sense that the religious leaders didn't do it in that way, right? And if you look at that, you see the wickedness of the time period. I think one of the things that we have to look at is the more wickedness there is, the more sacrifice that is needed. And if you look at Jesus' time, if we look at the parallels between Jesus' time and our time, the interesting thing is, remember, the time period became wicked and Jesus had to sacrifice himself to save everyone, right? And that's the situation that we're dealing with right now, is the time period is going for the worse, right? And all the message we keep hearing about, Israel couldn't accept the one, right? Israel couldn't do this. The religious leaders couldn't do this, which means that the man of mission has to sacrifice that much more for his own people. And that's something that we have to look at. It's kind of scary and sad at the same time, if you really think about that, because look at the time period we're living in right now. The time period we're living in right now is not the Lord of glory. We've already gone to the path of the cross. And then on top of it, what's making it even worse is that, Sunseam's going back to trial again. He's already been sentenced once into, it's just the first trial itself is already the sign that they're willing to do wickedness. They're corrupt, and they're willing to send him back in there because they hate him so much. And when you think about this, what does it mean? It means that there is going to be more sacrifice that is necessary, right? And if there's more sacrifice that's necessary, this is really crazy when you think about this. There's more sacrifice necessary than already what's on top of what Sunseem's already done. It's on top of what he's already done. You got to think about that. More sacrifice on top of what he's already done, 10 years already. And this is why when I look at the theme of the last 3 messages from Christmas, this week's Christmas Eve, like Sunday message, and last week's message, it's all about suffering. And it's all about being grateful for suffering. And I think that all of us have to kind of get ourselves ready. Because remember what Jesus said, that if I am persecuted, then you will be persecuted. Which means that if Sunseem is going to go through this much more persecution and more sacrifice, what does it mean about our path? Our path is not getting better. You kind of get what I'm saying? It's not getting better. It's not going to be like, oh, everything's going to be fine and great. Like I really feel that with next week, today's Provi In The Media, so I will go over the article. He already appealed the sentencing. So it's already been appealed. So there is going to be another trial, obviously, in 2024. But I do think it's something that we have to really look at 2024 as kind of our last shot before, we can get Sunseem out of this suffering, getting him out of this, this incredible, massive sacrifice that's going to happen one more time, right? So, here's one thing I was thinking about also that I do think we should think about, okay? So, the more we suffer, or the more you suffer, the more you feel, right? That makes sense, right? The more you suffer, the more you feel. That makes absolute sense. But being from the foreign countries, I think one thing that is a benefit is we will not go through the same amount of suffering. That's for sure, right? The foreign countries don't go through the same amount of suffering, and we're not going to see all the calamity and chaos like Korea does. But there is a major disadvantage. The major disadvantage is because we don't go through that suffering and chaos, we don't feel as much. We don't understand as much the Shimjung that deeply, right? Because remember what Sunseem said. Why does he realize Jesus' Shimjung? He realizes Shimjung because he is suffering that much more. That's why he realizes it, right? Foreign countries, one of the hard parts is, well, the good part is we don't suffer, but the bad part is we don't feel or realize the deep Shimjung. That is something I think is a massive disadvantage. And we have to pray that much more, or else we need to pray more to feel it, right? And I think that is something that we really have to consider and take into consideration. Is like, I'm not saying, guys, everyone move to Korea, and I'm not saying that, hey God, give me give me as much suffering as it is in Korea. I'm not saying that we should do this, but knowing our situation, right? Knowing our situation, we should be those that know the situation and deal with it the right way. Now, what does that mean? It means that if we're not going to suffer as much, if we're not going to go through that much suffering, we have to figure out what is the best way to understand it, to feel it. Like, we got to figure that out. Or else we're going to always be stuck in, I don't get what's going on. Oh, is it really that bad? Like, I'll tell you one thing, like here in Malaysia. I'm in Malaysia right now, and I think one of the major disadvantages is people don't know what's going on. I think that's a major disadvantage and plus advantage at the same time. And I think that's something that's a big transparency thing that I think I personally think is a major advantage is the more you know, the more you feel. Right? It's like, oh, I can't believe this happened. Oh, I can't believe KJS did this. Oh, I can't believe this happened. And when you figure this out and you see how bad it is, you're going to be like, wow, okay, no wonder, right? And we're going to be able to feel it a lot more. But if you're ignorant to it, or you're hiding this information from people, I think it's going to hurt them when it comes to prayer and when it comes to like really feeling the Shimjung of the Lord. That's what I really feel. Like, I really enjoyed the prayer meeting on Friday, and there's one thing that I thought was really interesting for me, okay? And I think I still am dealing with some type of trauma. I think I am, right? Because, I told you guys from the past is, I'm someone who is very, very close to KJS. Very, very close to her. I've known her since 1999, which means we've known each other for like 24 years. I've known her before she was a pastor, when she was a regular member and stuff like that too, okay? And I put a ton of trust in her and belief in her. I did, right? And, I think one of the hard parts for me was during the Friday prayer meeting. This is just me, okay? So I'm telling you guys only because I'm a little bit closer. But when I saw the female pastor crying on the pulpit, and while she was crying on the pulpit, she's talking about the situation, this, and this, I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel, like, those tears that she was crying while she was talking about the situation. I couldn't accept them. And you're like, what do you mean by that? It just reminded me of KJS. Like, remember when she was preaching, she did the exact same thing. She cried and she said this and that. And then now we know her, where KJS is now, and it just feels like I was conned. You know what I mean? Right? Conned by a woman's tears. Something along that line. But I couldn't feel it because it was just reminding me too much of KJS, just for me, right? And it makes me feel that it's fake. Not because, Pastor Rami, the one who's speaking on Friday, I'm not saying she is fake. I'm not saying it is. Totally not, right? It's just the difference between my heart and my mind. My mind knows that it's okay. My mind knows that she's not fake. My mind knows she's doing her best and she really loves this history and loves Sunsteam and stuff like that too, right? The difference is, even though in my head, my mind knows it, my heart doesn't accept it yet. It just doesn't, right? And, I'm going to tell you guys this. Sunsteam said in the past too. Sunsteam actually said this in the past. He says, you can't trust a girl's tears. Why? Because girls can, they flip a switch and they just cry, right? But Sunsteam said, if a guy cries, you can trust it. If a guy cries, it's genuine. Like, that's the way, because guys don't normally cry, but girls cry all the time. So even for me, I feel like, I'm only saying this for myself. I'm not saying that everyone should feel this way. I'm totally not saying that. All I'm saying is that's what I felt because of my past experiences and what I went through with KJS, stuff like that too. And that's why for me, it was a little bit hard for me to accept anything. Like, for instance, when Pastor Kim Dae-deok, right, the first guy that was speaking a bit, when he was speaking, I was straight up like, oh, I can feel it. Yeah, like here's a, like, oh. He said stuff that really stuck to me, like God doesn't judge until it reaches a limit, or because the righteous and wicked, if they get mixed, God doesn't want to, mix the judgment of the righteous and the wicked together, right? So when he's talking about these things, it hit me like, oh, this is so deep and this is so great. But, right when it went to Pastor Rami, and I'm just saying this is like prior trauma. It's not in my head. My head, I know it's right, but it's actually the flip side is my heart wouldn't accept it, right? So it's really interesting, and like I'm telling you guys is I know what is right. I do, right? In my head, I know it's the right thing. It's just that my heart can't accept it yet. I don't know if this makes sense to you guys, but this is just what makes sense. This is what I'm just kind of expressing. It's just what I feel. I'm not sure some of you guys feel that way also, but I just feel this way. And that's kind of what I went through with this type of thing. So yeah, but I really enjoyed it altogether. And you know what the funny thing is? After I read my notes of what Pastor Rami actually said, I was moved. Right? So it wasn't what she said. It's just me dealing with my own heart. That's all it really is. And I think it's just like a past trauma that I have to deal with. And I am dealing with. And the good thing is I understand that what I'm thinking is wrong. Like, I'm not sitting there complaining like, oh, why do you have a woman up there? Da, 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 da. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm just dealing with it. I recognize that I have that self-awareness that it's something that I am dealing with. But I don't know if you guys feel the same way or not, but that's just me, and mainly because I had just a very tight relationship with her and stuff like that too. So that is something that I did struggle with a bit. All right. So yeah, that's kind of the first segment for today on this wonderful Boxing Day podcast. Hope you guys really enjoyed it so far. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Of course, we have Q&A Thursday in 2 days, so go ahead and leave those questions. DM me. You can email me. You can text me, put me on Instagram, whatever it is. Go ahead and do that. Which means before we get into the second section, which is the word study on the Sunday message and the Christmas words, the Christmas message, let's get into the first break of the day.
My spirit, come to the world of gold. Come and live here in this heaven on earth. It's my true home, a place of pure love and truth. The Lord has come to guide this new history. All of creation sings and praises Him. Though times of old have failed, God's will rises again. Let's fulfill God's will on earth to the end. May this peace rising in my heart last forever. Sounds of the new history, new word and new songs, a new life full of hope. I'll live all my days. In my heart eternal joy springs from within. On the earth
All right, so let's get into today's word study. And of course, we have two big messages. The first, we have the Christmas message and the Sunday service message. I did a little bit on it yesterday, but today I'm going to go more into the Christmas message and some of the parts that I missed from the second part of the Sunday message too. Second and first part, okay? Christmas message, the title is The One Awaited Comes From Among Those That Are Waiting, and the King of Love and of Peace. All right, so great message, of course, and there are some points that overlap from the Christmas message into the Sunday message too. And, you know, I think that beginning point was just kind of on point. Is Sunseam says to Jesus, I know, he said to Jesus, I know how much pain and suffering you had to endure to save and manage and lead people because I went through the same extreme suffering. Right? And, you know, Jesus said, you know, the spirit goes through more than the body goes through. And I think this is something that's quite interesting. Like, I think this is something that we just don't realize that deeply because we don't know the spirit very well. Right? So what does it mean we don't know the spirit very well? It basically means that it's true. Like, we look at the spirit not feeling or not being the same as the body. Like, if the body goes through suffering, how could the spirit feel it if it doesn't have a body in the first place, type of thing? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have the body. So we look at that saying that, oh, there must be no suffering. There must be no difficulty that the spirit actually has. But when you look at, you know, when you look at what Jesus and God are telling us is, no, they feel even more. Now, this is something that we kind of learned, like we actually already learned this in the past. Like one thing that Sunseam said about the difference between the physical and the spiritual world, one thing that's kind of cool, or not cool, but kind of like really deep, is he said is, like, if your sin is as small as a pebble, in the spiritual world, it's the size of a boulder, right? So it's showing that even though it's so small in the physical realm, it is huge in the spiritual realm. And then on the flip side, he says, yeah, even if your righteousness is the size of a pebble, in the spiritual world, your righteousness is the size of a boulder, which means that what you feel is so much more in the spiritual world than the physical world. And we've learned this before. It's just that we never connect two and two together to really understand that, wow, it is actually that, you know, like they're feeling that much more. Remember, the spiritual world is a place of the heart. It's what you feel, right? And I like that point, especially when it talked about suicide, is like, hey, people think that when you're going through suffering and such, that if you kill yourself, you're not going to feel that suffering anymore. And then, you know, Sunseam's basically saying, no, it's the contrary. You're going to feel it even more, and you're going to keep it with you forever. And your spirit is going to receive all kinds of suffering. Where? It's in the heart. And when you think about this even more deeply, when someone commits suicide, the suicide itself takes what? It could take a second if you shoot yourself. If you hang yourself, it could take a few minutes, right? But you got to think about it really deeply. Why does someone commit suicide? Is that they're feeling so much pain and suffering inside their hearts to the point that they try to end their life, and that suffering of your physical body is so short compared to what is going on inside your heart and your mind. Which means, where is the majority of your suffering and the majority of your pain coming from? It's coming from the inside. Which means that if you're going to a world where you feel that much more and it's that much more sensitive, can you imagine how much more God and the Holy Spirit, the Holy Son, and Jesus are actually feeling? And they said it's even more than the body feels. And I think that that's something that we do have to take into consideration, right? We are going through hardships and suffering right now in the physical body, but if God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, the Holy Son is together with us in spirit, they are feeling what we feel, but at a higher level. Just like I said, right? Sunseam says, like, whatever is the size of a pebble is actually the size of a boulder in the spiritual world, right? It feels that much more. So, you know, we have to also think about this is, like, we have the representative, like the man of mission, he is the one going through the most suffering, right? Because he's the representative. So I think it's something that we have to kind of take into consideration. Like, hey, we think what we're going through is a lot of suffering, but it's got to happen first to the one that God has sent. And I think there's three major points that I loved is, why does the man of mission go through so much suffering? the 3 points of suffering. First one is condition and reward, right? So when he goes through suffering, he's setting condition to receive something better. That's number one. Number two, it is a time period. The time period is ignorant and wicked is another reason why I go through so much suffering. And the last one is the Messiah. The Messiah comes to destroy Satan and defeat the evil to save people, right? So those are the three reasons why there's so much suffering. And we have to recognize that every time the man of mission goes through some type of suffering, it's going to be one of these three reasons. Is he doing it to receive something better? Is it because of the wicked people? Or is it for the man of mission to destroy the work of Satan and defeat the evil people? Like, which one of the three is it? And I think the saddest one we have to recognize is number two, is because of the wicked and ignorant. Because that means that it doesn't have to happen. And that one is probably going to be the worst suffering. Because it's people that control it, right? So I thought that was very, very good points from there too. And I hope it's something that you guys gained a lot from also. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that I was looking at too. Even for the Christmas message. The core message, okay? So the core message was God sends Jesus with love and peace, right? And those who fail to receive him go through suffering and pain even until now. And he was obviously talking about Israel, the ones that were trying to accept Jesus. Okay, they failed to receive the Savior, and this is why they're continuously going through what they said, going through all the different things they're going through right now. But this is the one that got me. And when Sunseem said, if you fail to receive the Savior, you turn into a madman. Now that's interesting because hatred, jealousy, envy, deceit, lies. Now, why is that something that really hit me? Because it kind of feels like that when it comes to the people coming against us. After all the information that's come out too, like for instance, don't you think there should be someone saying something like, oh, that doesn't make sense? For instance, like the audio is fake. Shouldn't someone come up and say, oh, yeah, that's an interesting point that like, let me give you an example. I met someone when I was in Korea who was no longer in Providence, but someone I was a good friend with still, right? And the one point I brought up to this person that made them think more deeply, and they agreed with me, I think that's reasonable, is when I said, hey, don't you think it's kind of weird that KJS gets sentenced first? And they're like, why would that be weird? I'm like, because Sunseem hasn't even been convicted. This is before December 22nd. So the court's still trying to figure out if he's guilty or not. So they don't know if he's guilty or not because they still have to go through the trial. Yet KJS gets sentenced for something that they're not even sure he's guilty for before Sunseem's sentencing. Tell me that doesn't make any sense. And that person said, oh, that makes sense. And that's a reasonable person. But you know, when Sunseem was saying if you fail to receive their Savior, if you reject him, you become a madman. Yeah, it sounds like it to me that they won't even talk about any of those things. Like these people will talk to us and say things like, oh, you guys are just brainwashed. Oh, you guys are just this or that, right? They're going to say all these things to us. But it's not that, because think about this. They are telling us something that they don't even know is for sure. They're just believing what someone else's words are. And all we're saying is, hey, leave it. Let's wait for more information to come out. That is reasonable. Someone who is mad or crazy or a lunatic is just going to prejudge before hearing all the evidence and such. That's why when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's so true. Those who fail to receive the Savior turn into a madman. And it's not going to be just them. Generation after generation to their descendants, it's going to happen. They're going to be repaid for all the things that they have done. Right? It's all going to be done at that point. Right? So it's something that I looked at as like, man, that is something that we have to think about. Like, man, all these answers come out to the things that are happening right now, because a lot of us can say to the people that we talk to, they're not reasonable. Right? And of course, I'm going to agree with one thing. There are going to be some people who may seem unreasonable. Like, no, I don't want to believe in it. Like on our side, that say, I don't care what anything happens. Sunseem is innocent, this, and this, right? And it sounds very, very unreasonable, right? And it's something that, there's got to be a wisdom in how we talk to people. But there's also a wisdom in, if you know this history 100%, right? Would you say someone, like, imagine there's a mother defending their son. I know my son, he would never do something like this. Would you say she's a lunatic? Or does she just trust and love her son that much, right? So it's that trust and love that we have, knowing this history, all the miracles that we've seen and all the word that we've heard too, that allows us to defend Sunseam that boldly too, right? So yeah, that is something that really made me think really deeply too. Another point that I liked was, if you can't testify correctly, it's better to just not talk at all. Like, be mute. Become a mute. Because that's what caused Herod to misunderstand, right? So I think it's something that, we have to think about at that level, is we need to be able to testify properly, boldly, and powerfully, right? So that is something that I was thinking about. I was like, yeah, that's so true. Like so many times we don't really testify that well either. So that's kind of like some of the points I like from the Christmas message today. And for me, I was so tired because I was, 2:30 a.m. I was recording this starting at 2:30 a.m. last night. And then we had the Christmas service at 10 a.m. I was tired, but I was like writing notes the best of my abilities and just feeling as much as I could. Yeah. Christmas of love and peace, there's a bunch of things that we heard from it. And I think one of the biggest things that I was getting from it is, if we're going to have a time of love and peace, what does God and Jesus want the most? And it's peace between us and our brothers and sisters. And I think it's a really good, like for me, it's still Christmas Day. And being out here in the wilderness, in a campsite, it actually brings things into better perspective. And it's very easy to be peaceful here, I think, right? But, I think it's something that we have to really, really think about when it comes to how we are with our brothers and sisters, right? Like, even after what happened in 2023, I have an even bigger respect for people who've stayed, regardless of whether I get if I'm close to them or not. There's a profound respect for those people that stayed, and even more respect for all the head leaders and leaders that were leading us during this time of craziness, because they were going through a lot. Right, guys, we have a week left, right? One more week left before the new year comes in, and I hope that all of us can celebrate it really well. And I hope that we can really receive the new year well too, okay? So yeah, a lot of different things to think about. And of course, a lot of people were talking about how they were moved by the second message and the Sunday message of I love you, I thank you. And Susie was talking about all the suffering, but he's so thankful for it. And he realized so much through it. And I think that's something that we should be able to do too. So some of you guys out there, if you have any testimonies about things that you're very, very thankful for, and you can say you love God for all the things that you went through, go ahead, write, you guys can make a recording and send it to me, and I'll play it on this podcast too. Okay. So everyone, once again, as Sunseam said, everyone, you did an amazing and good job, and I hope you guys can really pat yourselves on the back and encourage and be with each other too. And encourage each other and praise each other for all the hard work they've done. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is the second segment. Hope you guys enjoyed that too. Leave your comments below. Would love to hear them. So let's move into the second break of the day.
When you lift me up from falling, I feel your warm embrace, breathing life into my withering spirit, pouring out your love and grace. So I think to myself, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. You pulled me out of darkness so many thousands of times. You gave me strength and courage, everything that I need in life. Look at all the countless blessings, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand what it means to be in providence, holding God's truth in our hands to fulfill the greatest history, God's will and highest love, all the wondrous miracles with our solid faith. We'll repay you with all our heart, will and life. Now revealed, you've shared his highest wisdom, valued secrets of how to live. Looking back at all the memories, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand, what a blessing it is that you're here, acting with God hand in hand. We receive the greatest rapture, we gain eternal joy. This is God's final history, never will it be destroyed. Providence will shine our brightest light for your dreams. Your work fills the earth. Yeah, we'll preach, gain all that you want to achieve. Even if the world forsakes you and they don't understand, we're more than proud to be here, holding God's truth in our hands. We fulfill the greatest history, God's will and highest love. Your words, your precious providence, we'll cherish it till the end. Providence will stand till the end. Providence will live with our God. Providence, love God with our heart, will and life.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment, and every Tuesday we do have Provi In The Media. And of course, there are some articles out there about what is happening with Sunsteam's trial and stuff like that too. And I have some, I guess this is newer news, and I think a lot of us may not know this, but Sunsteam has already sent in his appeal. Right, so we know that he got sentenced on the 22nd, but on the exact same day, they basically, according to the legal community, on the 24th, Sunsteam, who was indicted on charges, submitted an appeal to the 12th Criminal Division of the Daejeon District Court through his lawyer on the 22nd. And the reasons of the appeal are misconception of facts, misunderstanding of law, and unfair sentencing. So there it is, guys. We know now the appeal is already in, and we're going to be having a second trial. Right? So that is something we can really, really pray for right now. And we knew that this was going to happen too. Right? So what Sunsteam's lawyer said was there was no fact of any assault or molestation of the victims. There was no fact of calling himself a divine being such as the second coming Jesus. And the victims were not incapable of resisting. And then the lawyer said the sentence was too heavy and unfair, deviating from the Supreme Court sentencing standards. The reasons for the appeal were stated. So the prosecution was requesting 30 years. We heard about that already, right? But on the 22nd, the chief judge, Na Sang-hoon, right, this is a judge that we do need to pray for, said this: he repeatedly committed sexual violence against many believers who were religiously weak and vulnerable to crimes, and he deliberately took advantage of the mental and physical disability of the female believer who obeyed the defendant. Okay? So then, of course, the judge sentenced him to 23 years in prison, exceeding the sentencing standards of the Supreme Court Sentencing Committee, which means that for crimes like this, the Supreme Court's standards is 4 to 19 years and 3 months. That's what the Supreme Court Sentencing Committee says. So what we see already is that it is extreme even for what the Supreme Court actually has put out as a standard itself. So we have a very, very good case going all the way to Supreme Court because it's way too heavy, right? So, obviously, Sunseam is denying the crimes, obviously, right? And also denying secondary damage to the victims and personally attacking the victims, right? And so it's very, very interesting just to see what the lawyer is saying. The lawyer said that, the lawyer said, we haven't caused any secondary damage. We haven't personally attacked the victims. We haven't filed any false accusations. And, we weren't abusing the right to avoid recusal to delay the trial, right? We have every right to do that. And that's true. There was every right for us to do that. And that's why it's not something that you can say that, oh my gosh, he's just trying to delay. No. That is a right of every person to do that. Right? So very, very interesting because it's basically based on what the judge says. And it's based on the brainwashing is the big one. Right? So obviously Sunseam denied all charges. And we're basically saying that, the female believers, they weren't brainwashed. They were incapable of resisting. And even they continued to preach that they were humans and not gods, right? So even Sunseam says, I am not God. Sunseam says, when he says someone is divine if they can put the words of God into practice. Someone is divine if they receive the words of God. But Sunseam has never said, I am literally God or divine, right? He never says he's Jesus, never says he's God, right? So, yeah, it's very interesting to see why the prosecution would go so high on like 30 years, which is 11 years more than what the Supreme Court actually makes as a standard. And this is something we can start praying for. And 2024, this is a year, guys, for us. We don't want it to get any worse. We don't want Satan to grasp a hold of this time period and Sunseam to suffer anymore or to go through any more sacrifice. So I hope this is something that all of us can now even pray for more. Knowing that this first trial is over, let's get into the appeals and the second trial and the appeal trial and to the Supreme. Well, let's start with the appeals. Let's see what can happen in the appeals, and then if that doesn't work out, we still have the Supreme Court at the very end too. All right, guys. So there it is, guys. That is the end of Provi In The Media. And, of course, it's the end to our Tuesday podcast on Boxing Day. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Yes, I'm over here at the campsite. I'll probably do a little bit more interviews with some more people tomorrow. But I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Have an amazing and awesome Tuesday. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone.